My name is Tanya Bain, and this is Marlow Plowman. She's 4.5 years old, and she has rhabdomyosarcoma. On December 8th, 2011, I got a phone call from Marlow's daycare provider, and she wasn't overly concerned, but said that when she was changing Marlow's diaper, she noticed that one leg was a little bit bigger than the other one. We called telehealth that night, and they said if the swelling didn't go down, to go to the doctor in the morning, which we did. And we didn't think too much about it, and as soon as I got to my doctor, she looked at it and sent us straight to Hotel du Hospital, to the Children's Outpatient Clinic. I was alone with Marlow at that time. My husband was working, and I started to get scared. And we got sent for ultrasounds and blood work, and at one point, at about hour number 4, I looked at the nurse and asked her if they thought that this was cancer or a tumor, and the oncologist, who happened to be the doctor at the outpatient clinic, said they were looking into that and they were going to admit us into KGH that night. My world collapsed at that moment, and I remember crying in the entrance at Hotel du Hospital, calling my neighbor and my sister. We were quite sure it was cancer, but we didn't have a diagnosis specifically yet. On December 16th of 2011, which is my husband and I's anniversary, we found out that Marlow had rhabdomyosarcoma. She was stage 4, high risk. She was given a 30% chance of survival in 2 years. And I think people focus a lot on what's your percentage of survival. And when you're diagnosed with cancer, I don't think it matters to a certain degree whether you have a 90% survival or 10%. You still have cancer, and it haunts you every day. They outlined that the current protocol was 53 weeks of chemotherapy, and some radiation built in at some point. And on December 20th, just before Christmas, we brought her in for her first chemotherapy treatment. When we finished treatment in February of 2013, everybody told us how great it was. No more treatment. We could get our life back. And nobody really understood. It was a very scary time. We came to rely on chemotherapy because it was working for Marlow, and it became our crutch. And we didn't want it to stop, as much as we knew it was poison to a certain degree. And Marlow had several different types of chemotherapies, and several of them can cause leukemia, among other horrible side effects. But at that point, we almost would have chosen to continue on, because we knew that that was stopping the cancer at that point. So at a moment where everyone thinks it's a great celebration, it was a scary, horrible time for us. She's the only kid at the school with a bald head, and normally she's around children that have either lost their hair or are bald. So it was a worry for us about how she'd be treated. I think every parent worries about that anyway, but she came home after her second day and told me that she wanted her hair back now. And I asked her if some of the kids were asking her about that. She said yes. And I asked her what she told them. And she said, "Mom, I told them I have cancer and my hair would come back. And that was the first time she ever said she had cancer. Up until now, I don't think she knew. Marlow has had to have it's called a GCSF, or a Neupogen shots. And they're daily shots given post-chemotherapy that cause her bone marrow to work harder to bring her counts up so that they can turn around and hit them again with more chemo. So after every round of chemotherapy, she gets a daily shot. And I think there were only 2 where my husband and I didn't end up in a fight at the end of it, from having to hold her, or me get pricked with the needle, or frustration. And both of us have dealt with this journey, I'm sure, very differently, probably in ways we've never spoken to each other. And it's caused fights, and it's caused stress. And I think we haven't been out on a date in a year. Our new chemotherapy protocol is 12 cycles of chemo, and we've completed 5 of those cycles. Each one is 21 days, and that's assuming there's no delay. And we were told 2 weeks ago that they feel it's necessary to radiate Marlow again. During her original radiation, that was difficult because she had 2 sites where the cancer was. They gave her full dose radiation in her leg, beneath the knee. They tried to avoid her growth plate under her knee, but pretty much prepared us for everything being radiated would die. And we needed to do that to kill the primary site. So we're preparing ourselves for this next round of radiation, which will be 4 to 6 weeks, again, general anesthetic. And that was a difficult time in Ottawa, probably the hardest of the journey. So we're preparing for that, knowing that we're killing parts of her body, but accepting we have to do it. And you'd think after almost 2 years of doing this, we'd be good at it, but you grieve again, and you know, we knew her chances of survival had just dropped significantly. And we are back in treatment at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. And we know, and many people tell you that, think positive. And deep down we know that all the positive and the thoughts in the world aren't going to hear her. But we're thankful for them, and we hope we have her as well as she can be for as long as possible.